Alright, now that Pac-Land's complete, and we have a little bit of control over what we want to do here, I want to change the wallpaper that we got from Pac and Pal. Customize. Grab the wallpaper. I like the Pac-Man Ghost Bee, but I want the neon. Yeah, that's super cool. Do we have any different flooring? Let's try the whites. No, not the white. Black, maybe? Nah. Navy. That'll do. Yeah, that looks better. Right, and we'll keep the rest of the arcade the same. Yeah, look at our cast of characters right now. We got Blinky, we got Pinky, we got Inky, we're just missing Clyde. I wonder if there's any more that do join the arcade. Oh, look at this. And actually, I've been wondering what that does down low. Okay, that's just telling me I can move Pac-Man. I thought like I could do like certain taunts or something like that. I would love it if Pac-Man could do taunts. Maybe just stand around enough. Alright, let's not waste any time. So, that said, we got one other arcade game to look at that's from the original 80s era of Pac-Man, and that is Pac-Mania. So, let's talk about this one. Pac-Mania came out much later compared to some of the arcade games. It came out in 1987, and this one actually wasn't even published by Midway, it was actually published by Atari here in the West. Pac-Mania would, for a time, be the last official outing of Pac-Man in the arcades, if we're not counting Pac-Man Arrangement, of course. And this one is similar to what we've seen with some of the other games. It tries to be a return to form that was based on the original Pac-Man, but still trying to do something different to attract an audience. Does it work? It's up for debate. But ultimately, this came out at a time where it was essentially the death of the arcade as we knew it. Rather a transitioning point, because what we saw during this point in time was the resurgence of the home console market, especially thanks to Nintendo here in the West with the Nintendo Entertainment System. Many people were leaving the arcades in favor of the home consoles. It's not to say that there wasn't anything they couldn't find in the arcade in comparison. I mean, there were still plenty of great games that come out in the arcades. But this is when many people were jumping ship, and what we knew as the golden era of gaming in the arcades was coming to an end. So, was Pac-Mania that swan song to the series that would help it transition to the home console market? Or was it something that could still have an impact in the arcades? Well, we know the answer, all things considered, but I still think it was a strong note, all things considered. So, this is Pac-Mania. Alright, here we go, Pac-Mania, baby! Alright, so yes, this is the actual bezel work that they had for Pac-Mania. Now, it looks good, all things considered, but at the same time, it also looks pretty basic compared to what we saw with like the original Pac-Man, or even some of the other games, for example. It's not the most colorful. The color black really is a pretty unfair contrast compared to what came before it. But I like the original drawings here. And you might see that we actually have an extra ghost here aside from the 5 that we already knew from previous games. Blinky, Pinky, Inky, Clyde, Sue, of course, but then we also have Funky. It's worth noting, though, that we never do see a navy blue ghost in Pac-Man at all. Now, of course, ghosts turn blue when you get the power pellet, but that's besides the point. But rather, Funky is actually green. So they actually kind of goofed up on the bezel work. That's not the right color of the ghost. That said, though, let's play Pac-Mania. Insert coin, and quarter up. Welcome to the Pac-Man world. Let's have some fun with Pac-Man. Now let's go to Blocktown. Now, immediately you're going to see that the biggest thing with Pac-Mania, I want to say Pac-Man, is that this is an isometric 3D version of Pac-Man. Meaning that it's made to look 3D both in perspective and form, but at its core, it is still a 2D game. It's really just a visual style. The other big thing is that Pac-Man has the power to jump. Now, of course, this isn't the first time we've seen Pac-Man jump. That goes to Pac-Lands. But this is the first time we see Pac-Man jump in the arcades. As a matter of fact, I think this would probably be the only time, aside from Pac-Land, we see Pac-Man jump in the arcades. Because every other instance would be Pac-Man from the home console version of the Pac-Man series. It's very different. It's very different. Now, of course, Pac-Mania plays just like the original Pac-Man. Go around the maze, you collect the dots, pellets, and then you go from stage to stage. This is the one game from Namco, not Midway, but Namco, that finally did have some original stages in between. Think about it. Let's compare all the games we saw before if we're not counting Pac-Lands. Pac-Man, a single stage. Super Pac-Man, a single stage. Pac-and-Pal, that's a single stage. And again, we're not counting Pac-Land because Pac-Land's a different beast, all things considered. Now, aside from this color swap, we're going to see more as we continue on. So yeah, it took Namco 7 years to make a Pac-Man game that had changing levels. Really let that sink in. So it really was right here in the West that they really didn't know that the Western audience wanted really what made Pac-Man popular in the first place, but doubled down on it. And now it took them that long that they finally did it themselves. Again, I'm not trying to throw shade, but it's just interesting when you think about the history of Pac-Man and everything that led up to it to see where we stand. It really is crazy to think about. But here's a gripe with Pac-Mania, and this is a reason that many may throw it away, thinking that it's not as good as the other games in the series. And that's because of its opening 2 levels, Blocktown. It feels very slow in comparison to the other Pac-Man games. Now, is this the normal speed that Pac-Man moved in the original Pac-Man? Yeah, probably, but it's the isometric 3D part that makes it feel so much slower in comparison. But first, welcome to Pac-Man's Park. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Pac-Man Theater. Look at all those ghosts. Pac-Man never stood a chance. Now it's picking up the speed. See, there were versions of the game, the arcades, where you could actually skip the first 2 levels entirely and go straight to Pac-Man Park. But when the speed picks up, it feels like a much different game. If you're playing the game and you're starting Blocktown, because of its slow speed, many might be turned off thinking that the whole game itself is slow. Part of that is because of its look, thinking that the 3D-ness is what slows it down. Really, it's just those first 2 levels. And part of that is the reason why I never really found myself enjoying this game in particular, is because it always felt so slow. Ah, funky! Funky! But really, it's just because of the opening tutorial level. Part of that in its design is made to teach you about the jumping mechanic and being able to jump across ghosts. And the other reason that some may not enjoy it is because of the jumping function. Some think that because of it, it makes the game too easy. Or rather, that it kind of breaks the fundamental of Pac-Man being this maze game, where the objective is to outsmart the ghosts, instead of simply just jumping over them to get the safety. Yeah, I see it, but personally, I like it way better being able to jump. Just having that, little bit of extra flair and being able to dodge it the way I want to, instead of always having to be cornered and feeling like it was unfair. Not that it was, it's just trying to outsmart the ghosts, so on and so forth. You get the point. But anyways, you can see that this stage we're on right now is actually a remake of the original Pac-Man. Pretty cool, all things considered. This wouldn't be the last time we see a Pac-Man game do this. Of course, the next game we look at is going to be that game. We all know what I'm talking about. But no, honestly, I think Pac-Mania is a good game. I just think that the way it starts out is a deterrent from those that may want to think that it should be anything more but feels like less. I say give this game a fair I couldn't jump in time. I love the game over too. Unfortunately, it looks like we're not able to continue. There are some versions of the game that do let you continue. This is not one of them. I wanted to show off some of the other levels. So I want to see screen setting, game guide, mission for the heck of it first. Okay, so we're gonna have to play this one more time to get the next game. I think I have a feeling I know what it is. 5:10. But actually, game guide, rules, control guide. Oh, hello, there's a history section? Released in 1980s. Oh, what? It does the work for me! And I had this all planned out in advance talking about the games. You're telling me I could have just read this and I could have been done with it? Alright. We'll read it just this once. But I'm gonna have to make like a final video in the end that just talks about each one. Okay. Released in 1987, this game returns to the basic mechanics that made the first Pac-Man great. Moving around a maze, eating dots while avoiding ghosts. What sets the game apart is that the characters in the maze are displayed in 3D. This introduced new game features such as Pac-Man being able to jump over the ghost instead of simply running from them. With new types of ghosts in a variety of stages, the game threw players all around the world. Damn, I mean, it sums it up pretty well, all things considered. So, I'm gonna have to keep checking that out then. Or at the very least do like a mega video in the end that goes over each one. I feel like that's fair. But no, it looks like there's no way to change... Ooh, CRT. Screen size. Okay. Not the most flexible options, all things considered. So actually, I'm seeing a major flaw in this collection. There's actually no way to change the dip switches. For those that don't know, dip switches are what are inside the arcade cabinets. And unfortunately, I'm getting a phone call, so I have to pause this recording. As I was saying, dip switches are within the circuit board of the arcade game itself. And when you'd flip certain combinations, you'd actually be able to change some of the stats about a game, such as how long it would take score-wise to get an extra life, or being able to do certain things such as using a level select, or even configuring a debug mode to make sure the controls worked. Many Namco arcade ports and compilations, I meant to say the arcade machines, but no, the compilations, would actually feature being able to change these dip switches. Many know them nowadays simply just as the settings of a game. Unfortunately, we don't have that here, and that's actually a pretty major problem when it comes to other Namco ports they've done, compilations, that did have them. So, I can't help but feel a little disappointed here, actually. So, we're not going to be able to get to where we were before. But that said, we're going to play once more because we need to do it in order to unlock the next game. So, let's just play through Pac-Mania one more time and go through the slow block town, which I do like the music, and get to where we were before. Pac-Mania would actually be a big inspiration for another game that actually was made without Namco's knowledge, but was made to promote the Nintendo GameCube and a special peripheral made for the Game Boy Advance. You know it well, I'm talking about Pac-Man Versus. From its very design, some of its music, including some from the next game we'll be talking about, and even just its overall gameplay look, was heavily inspired by Pac-Mania. In some ways, I would say that, aside from its unique gameplay choice of being multiplayer, I would call it a spiritual successor to Pac-Mania, just because. But no, in some ways, Pac-Mania does live on, and was pretty much of an inspiration for some of the later games in the Pac-Man series. In small ways, of course. But no, considering that if we're not counting the next game, this was the very last Pac-Man arcade game to come out. For it would essentially be known as only the home console market. It's really crazy to think about, all things considered. It really is. Now, I do wonder, though, what it would have looked like if Pac-Man had his arms and legs. Would it have looked weird? Would it have worked? I don't know. I want to know what that would have looked like. Because, I mean, we already got the eyeballs on him, and it's got, like, that, the Pac-Man shape inside his eyes. That was the classic traditional for, the original Pac-Man, the Japanese Pac-Man design. Which, honestly, it looks pretty close here, doesn't it? But, notice one thing different, he's not wearing boots. He's wearing them sneakers. Yeah, Pac-Man's got style back in 1987. The sneakers, though, would actually be pretty significant to some of the later games, especially an inspiration for what was considered his first redesign. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Careful now. Watch out for the ghost. Blocktown is full of very colorful bricks, things that, for legal reasons, I can't make a comparison to. but they look pretty strikingly close, all things considered, don't they? I'm surprised they haven't decided to collab yet and make their own version of a special toy set based on said brands. I'm just saying. Alright, welcome back to Pac-Man Park. I actually like that Pac-Mania has this theater design going on with its cutscenes. It's different because the other games were just cutscenes, but this, there's like a theme to it. It's a movie. It makes you wonder if the whole game itself, kind of like Mario 3, was meant to be a stage play, if this is just one big movie. Now, that's a bit on the nose, I'm sure, but I like to believe it's a possibility that this could be just a show to its own. But alright, Pac-Man Park. I never did mention because I never actually used it, but whereas the original Pac-Man was just a warp that went from left to right, they can't do it in that game. So this one actually shows you the passageway between the warp. I wonder if it was always like that, and it's just like when there's like off meta commentary things that you just don't know about. Kind of like Wreck-It Ralph, if anyone's seen that movie, how the Pac-Man maze, that's a warp, but it also leads to the train station. But I like to believe it. I like to believe it. That'll explain how Pac-Man's able to survive inside the tunnel in the original game. It's only when they're off, like, the edge of it that they kill him, because that's when they're, like, in view. Alright. Get the special pellets. Oh yeah, this would also be the first instance of the special pellets. They're power pellets that appear in the middle of the stage, but act more as bonus power-ups. Really, that's all they are. They're just power-ups in the stage. I don't believe they do anything special. I could be wrong, though, but I don't think they do. I think they are just there as special power pellets. The next arcade game, though, would double down on some of the special abilities that Pac-Man can do. Especially well, as a matter of fact. But alright, keep going. My little... Oh. Oh, come on, I thought I could shake him off. I should jump more than I am right now, but... Let's see, what else can I say? Extends! You'll notice that in the artwork, Pac-Man actually has a short nose, but in the one down low, he actually has a longer nose. There was actually this distinction for a time, especially because of the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, where Pac-Man in the West did have a bit of a shorter nose. Or sometimes he wouldn't be drawn with the nose at all. Just saying. But, in truth, Pac-Man is meant to have that longer nose, which is based on his Pac-Man design. But here in the West, even with his Pac-Mania of course, he has that shorter nose design. Part of that I think was just the inspiration moving forward. But it's weird to think about. It's like small regional differences, I suppose. I mean, even the best characters do have those regional differences. For example, Sonic the Hedgehog, he was more cutesy in the Japanese version artwork for him, but then when it came to the West, they completely changed his design. And they had like a whole different artist doing the designs. Alright, this next one should be a harder version. Yep. Still the same stage, but just slightly harder. You can tell it's hard because it's red. It is weird seeing the original maze in colors other than blue. Like, this is red on blue, but the other one was blue on white. It is weird. You're so used to the original design of it that you don't think about what it could look like if it were different. Like, it plays with your minds. A Mandela effect, I suppose? I mean, look, even the Pac-Man above where it was yellow is blue now. But I do like the gold accent on the left there. To me, this kind of reminds me of like a boxing ring because of the way of the tube design of the maze. I don't think it was ever really confirmed what the Pac-Man maze is supposed to represent. A sewer, a hedge. The blue color is what mostly throws it off. You could call it a hedge maze, which would be a later instance in other Pac-Man canons, especially one we'll be talking about much later. But I don't think they've ever really said what the original Pac-Man, the original maze, is supposed to be. I don't think it was ever confirmed. Please let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. But within the 1980s, I don't know if it was ever confirmed. Alright, next world. Commons are playing outside. Be careful. Where are the jumping monsters? So if you make it far enough, you eventually get to a point where the ghost will jump. And this is when I always found the game much more difficult because You know which ones jump in this stage, but when we get to the final world, it's essentially a free-for-all. Now, you can juke them though. If you time it just right, it is still possible to jump over them. But it's very hard to pull off, especially in the next world. I don't think I'm going to get that far though, because I'm not that good at this game. I love the music for this one. This is my favorite track in the, if we're not counting arrangements, the Pac-Man arcade series. I love hearing this in Pac-Man Versus, by the way. Alright, so keep going. I wonder if I'm going to be able to unlock this because I played it. It seems like because the jukebox. Keep going. There's water up above, so this is like a water world. I'm surprised though this isn't more pure-based. Like, we got like these prisms, these polygons, playing to the illusion of this being isometric 3D. Which seems like the theme of the game. Okay, oh yeah, I was wrong. They actually do special bonuses. The green one makes you go faster. I'm sorry, folks. I thought they were just regular pellets. So the green actually did give me a little bit of a speed boost initially. Pretty cool. Alright, keep going. It's gonna get intense now, but we can make it through. Let's see how far I can get, try to get a high score. So just like the original Pac-Man, the further you get in, eventually the power pellet just doesn't work as much as it would. Now, because the stage does scroll between the left and the right, it's gonna be hard to find some of the pellets. You'll feel like you're in spots that are always looping, or just be like me and go straight into your death. Alright. Player one ready? Let's keep going. Shake them off. Let's take them out. 1, 2, 3. Easy points. I don't know, when I play Pac-Man, I really just try to go for distance. I never really focused on the points. I know there are some, especially in the arcade days, where you would go for the high score, but I always focused more on just getting through the stages, getting as far as you could. I guess there really never was a purpose in some of the earlier games, because there was no, like, ending to it. There was no getting to the end. But you still feel like that accomplishment. Look how far I made it. Or look how high of a score I got. Each person plays, there's the jump, for a different reason. It's just something different. Ba-ba-ba. Love the music. Alright. Also, there are some versions of the games that they would actually include the high score list. Unfortunately, this is not that version of the game. It would actually also feature a version of Pac-Man like a 2D sprite running. Again, crazy to think about. But alright, that's gonna do it for Pac-Mania. Once again, this would be the last time Pac-Man was in arcades if we don't count the next game. But, return to the arcade. 11 tokens, I'll take them. What's gonna be? 80%. Pac-Man Arrangement Arcade version. At long last, we haven't had the arcade version in an official form since the Game Boy Advance. And even now, they've done it where they've actually fixed something pretty major. The music. We can finally play the true Pac-Man arrangement in an official form in a Namco game. I don't know if anyone realizes, but that's a pretty big deal. That's going to be the next game, but not the one we're covering next, because Pac-Man Arrangement doesn't come out until a couple of years. This is when Pac-Man will become much more dominant in the console-verse. So that said, we actually have 2 games to check out before we get to Pac-Man Arrangement. But I'm looking forward to that one. Pac-Mania. Ooh. Gold container? Pac-Mania. Blocktown, Japan. Japan version. Oh? I don't know that. Is there a different version of Blocktown? Oh, I want to look that up now. Pac-Mania. Pac-Mania. Pac-Man Park. What's it mean Japan version? What? Rocking Horse. Pac-Mania. Retro. Oh no, it's the Atari version. Oh. That's gutsy. That's gutsy. Pac-Mania. Comics D. Oh, that's fun. Maze B. Jungly Steps. Yeah, we got the music. So, if I get far enough, so I do get all the music in the game. That's cool. Pac-Mania. 50 missions cleared and new visitors stop by the arcade. We have Clyde. There we go, the original Ghost Gang. Blinky, Pinky, Inky, Clyde. Everyone is here. And what an arcade. Truly. And look, we actually managed to get more than what we started with. And that's after playing arcade games too, by the way. So, you've heard me say enough now, but this was the last time Pac-Man was in the arcades for a long time. So now we turn our attention to the console games. So up next is actually one of my personal favorites. We're going to be checking out Pac-Attack.